Hey, this is Mike Addis. Thanks for joining us. It's always our pleasure to bring you these videos. And so today we're going to talk about relationships, and this is relationship part 1 in a series of 3 parts on relationships. So what does relationships have to do with anything? Well, since most of my videos are based on people, interacting with people and making transactions and making money, so the purpose of my relationships are primarily business related. Now, does business interact and cross over into personal? No, not in my world. In my world, business is usually business on rare occasions. And I do mean rare. Personal will enter into the relationship, but not often. So I separate business and personal relationships. Why? Well, there's several reasons, but the big reason is when money enters into relationship, which is business related, it's an objective, hardcore, non-subjective type relationship in my world. Again, all this is based on my own personal experiences. I'm not reading this out of a textbook. After years and years and years of having relationships with all kinds of people in all kinds of situations, I look at them as being objective when it comes to business, and it's cold and it's hard and it's all about the facts. Okay? So I'm looking for measurable results. So in my business relationships, all my business relationships are based on measurable results. My personal relationships also are based on measurable results. So I'm looking for, if I'm going to do something, I want someone to have some kind of reciprocity or reciprocate what I give. Not exactly a quid pro quo relationship, but there's got to be something in there where I'm getting a benefit out of the relationship. And this does not include children. So any of my children, of course, I don't look for anything in return from them. I have very little to no expectation because that relationship is totally separate, doesn't count. So I'm not counting that relationship. So here's the 7 rules I'm going to use in part 1 of this video. And I'm going to try to keep the video as short as possible. So number 1, the first thing I have to do, and I'm looking for other people to do the same thing, is to take responsibility for their actions. I take responsibility for mine. So if something doesn't go right, whether it's personal or business, I have to take responsibility. So once I take responsibility in any relationship, it works, or at least it has an opportunity to work. In my world, usually the other person doesn't take responsibility and starts making excuses as to why he or she didn't do what they were supposed to do. That kind of kills the relationship right off. Number 2, communication is the key. You have to have very, very good communication, so people don't know how to define communication. My definition of communication is when I talk to you, I need to make sure you understand what I'm talking about. So let me say that again. I'm going to say it a little slowly. When I am speaking to you, I need to make sure that you understand what I'm talking about. So when people say to me, I didn't understand what you were talking about, it was really on me to make sure that I know 100%, which is why I always ask the same question over and over again. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Yeah, I do understand what you're talking about. Well, good. Repeat it back to me then. Because I have to make 100% certainty in my mind that the person I'm having a relationship with, whether it's business or personal, is it's the same kind of similar thing here. The only difference that separates business from personal is money or real hardcore statistical numbers. So numbers are more involved in a business relationship in my world. Number 3, I have to give more than I get. So if someone's working for me, I usually pay them. I usually overpay them. I don't underpay. Why? Because I don't want to owe them anything. So in other words, I'd rather have people owe me. I don't want to owe them. So if I give somebody money, I'm usually giving them more than they're supposed to get. And so therefore I look to see how they respond to my overpaying them or overgiving them. One of 2 things are going to happen. They're going to understand and appreciate what happened, and they're going to say, wow, this is a good deal for me, or they're not going to understand at all. And usually that has to do with intelligence, and intelligence is not education. Okay, number 4, logical sense. If the person is not speaking to me logically, and it doesn't make any logical sense to me, and I just don't understand what the hell they're talking about, then the relationship's going to end relatively quickly. It's over. 5, I'm going to mention it one more time. I have to see measurable results in a business relationship. Personal relationship, measurable results would be, well, I'm doing all this stuff. I'm not getting anything in return. There's no real measurable results I'm getting back in this relationship, so therefore I don't think it's going to continue, but I don't have any personal relationships anyway. Almost all my relationships are business. I have very, very, very few and far between personal relationships or even relationships I'm interested in developing in a personal way, shape, or form. Number 6, I'm looking for value for value. You could call it a quid pro quo. For those people out there that don't know what quid pro quo means, it's kind of Latin for I do for you, you do for me. I scratch your back, you scratch my back. So I'm looking for a value for value relationship. And number 7, and this is probably one of the biggest things for me. People will say, well, what does that mean? Availability. I need to be available to people in a relationship, especially if it's business, and even more especially if it's personal. I don't want to be on the line waiting for somebody to call me back for days and days and days. Why? Because nothing ever happens. So availability, which means I have to be available and I'm looking for the other person to be available too. I don't want to be on a chat because, you have all this chatting going on now, WhatsApp or whatever, and all of a sudden the person disappears for a day. The chat just ends. This is a bad sign. And, number 8, but I'm going to save this for the other ones. I'm looking for people in my world that have something that I don't have, at least in a business relationship. So I'm looking for people that are much more intelligent than I am so that I can make that relationship work on a business level. On a personal level, I'm looking for something in return for what I'm giving. So I'm giving more. I'm looking for that person to also reciprocate. That shows me that the person is interested. If they don't reciprocate and give me something in return, then it becomes a one-way relationship and more of a parent-child relationship where you don't look for anything in return. This is Mike Addis. This is part 1 of relationships. And the next one, we're going to have part 2. And that's going to be hopefully just as exciting. Thanks for joining us. It's always our pleasure to bring you these videos. Don't forget to hit the subscriber button and make comments, and we will see you on the next video.